Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Domain Name Law Show. Pretty serious show here on X. We're here every Tuesday. That's noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm pretty lucky I got two co-hosts. And first, I want to say to my co-host that's been here the longest, David Michaels, it's like clockwork. The guy shows up every week. David, I really appreciate it. It's like one of those people, you just don't really say it enough. But David, how's everything going today? You're sounding great. Sounding great. I didn't hear one word. Jeff, did you hear anything?
No, I'm sorry. I'm just laughing. That was great timing. Yes, hopefully you can hear me though. Um, yeah, everything's good. Hopefully David will come through. I spoke to David earlier no, I guess it was last week, the end of last week, trying to pick his brain on some AI stuff. I'm just trying to build a tool for myself. So when I write UDRP decisions, I can kind of do quick and easy searches of previous decisions now that I've, amounted about 70 or so decisions. So, yeah, so everything's good. Maybe David's back online.
Yeah, for some reason, Dave, we see you go off mute. We still can't hear you. So leave, spin around, come back up. Thanks, Jeff. Well, yeah, that's interesting because I was working on, our mock trial. You there, Dave? Oh, let's see. I'll try to let me invite David and see if he always thinks that when you invite and I no, I invite the co-host that doesn't work for him, but he just likes to be a speaker. But he's a co-host. Don't confuse it, people. You there, Dave? Nope, not working. Not working again. Well, leave. Let me invite you to co-host just to see what happens. But yeah, you need to. I don't know. No idea. But why? Why? And it's usually I was gonna say maybe it's Canada, but he's the only one from Canada. Arif sure doesn't have a problem. I've never heard Arif have a problem with his microphone one time. Okay, so David, whenever you want, try. Okay, so anybody want to check out the outline? Dave, just talk anytime, and I'll tell you if I keep talking like I'm now. Yeah, I didn't hear you. Um, I'm sure he'll come back, and I'll try that co-host thing. I did see that. Okay, what do you keep requesting for when I say I want to invite you to co-host? All right, I did it again.
All right.
There he
Is it working
is.
now?
Yeah, David, what's
Okay.
going on? How's everything going?
All right. I guess my desktop is not working today, but my phone is. So that's odd, but okay.
Well, I'm glad you got a backup, but no, you heard what I said anyway. No, it's pretty fantastic. Both you guys have as a co-host. So anybody listening, we're gonna have some questions at the end. If we make it, we're going to try to get through our three cases we didn't get through last week because we were talking about owning people's names. And today we have a little extra topic too. I'm going to bring up with the guys. But if you have questions for Jeff or David, and I act like it's just for Jeff or David, yeah, I'll jump in and answer even if I'm not qualified. So if you have a question for Jeff or David, please, be ready, raise your hand, come on up, and then we'll do that towards the end. But if you got something that's pressing, sure, you can throw us off track. Our outline is up at DNL, that stands for Domain Name Law, dnlshow.com/outline. You can see some things we're going to talk about today. Some things aren't on there. But one thing that's not on there is, yeah, I just saw somebody Jordy Gasul, 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 I guess. Anyway, he just picked up Jeff.com. Pretty big name. I wonder what he paid for that baby. But you have no interest in being Jeff.com, branding yourself, Jeff?
Probably not for the asking price. I'm sure he would like, but if he wants to donate it to the show, then sure.
Yeah, he just picked that baby up, so I wonder what he spent because he says now it's part of Name Agency, which is his company, I believe. I think it is. But anyway, he has a partnership with another guy from what I remember. But anyway, I wonder. I guess we'll see what the asking price is. Probably got to make offer or inquire, one of those things, and then curious what he bought it for. Boo, Jeff. But it doesn't pass the radio test because most people spell it GEOFF. Just kidding. Okay. So
Only if you're the giraffe.
yeah, well, one thing that we were going to touch on today, and I guess I'll start with first, I'm going to start with the news that we have on the outline, and then I'm going to talk about this Agenix AI. A gentleman had a question on a blog. I find out that it was sold, Agenix.ai was sold on Namecheap today, 32 grand to James Booth. But this guy was talking about domain name. I'll just get a trademark, and then any domain name with that is worthless. He's talking. Okay, so we're gonna go through that, and I'll give some details. But if you look at our outline, and I know a lot of people are like, "Geez, hold on, let me look at this baby." B1 is our first news item, and basically it was Verisign comes out with their domain. What's DNIB stand for? I should know. Let's see, I can find it.
Domain name industry brief.
Oh yeah, okay. So they do this, I guess, quarterly, but I think it's great information. I mean, reason I like it is because the overall. So this is every TLD. Okay, all country codes. Basically, a TLD is the top level domain name. That can be a GTLD, a CCTLD. So all TLDs, they, according to this industry brief, hit 371.7 million domain registrations across all top level domains. What I think is really important about it is we hear that, and I'm correct there, right, Jeff? That's across all country codes, all GTLDs, all those, we call the old ones like com, net, and org. That's everything, right?
I believe so. I mean, it's this company that's been gathering this data has been doing it for years, ever since the early 2000s at least. Zuknik. So I believe they have all of them, but there may be some TLDs that don't publish their zone. Not GTLDs. GTLDs have to, but there could be some CCTLDs that you know, it's unknown how many registrations they have because they don't publish their zones. But um, yes, it's got most of them. Certainly all the main ones.
Yeah. Um, well, what was interesting about it is, as I said, with 371 million, .com is 158 million of that. Okay, I bring it up because you would wonder, okay, so .com has 158 million registrations. What about, say, something like .net that we think is usually the second biggest? And it's not, by the way, but it has 12.6 million registrations. So you can just see how saturated .com is. Basically, everyone, even with those long tails, a plumber that's got three names, Honky Tonk Plumbing, Massachusetts.com, they all, people default will register a .com name. Only 12.6 .nets. It just shows how many available .nets, for people that own a .com. It's really just unbelievable. So, 145 million .coms are registered without the .net being registered. The second largest TLD with registrations is the .cn. Okay, so over in China, still only 21 million. So just to see the impact and the dominance .com has, when you look at the all the registrations, you realize, geez, so that many people with .com names, that many companies out there really promoting it. So that doesn't mean 158 million are developed, right? I don't know how many would be developed. Maybe it's a fraction, 10%, maybe it's 20%, 30% of all the .coms. But just the mass amount, that's why it's always what they say, top of mind, or I don't know what else they say. It's like people just default to .com, and I catch myself, doing it all the time. I'll bring up another extension and then add a .com to it. But it just really dominates. Okay, so 158 million .com names registered, 21 million .cn, and then Germany .de is third with like 17.5 million, and then .net comes at 12.5 million. After that, .org with about 11. If you want to check out the numbers and some details, you can go to our outline, dnlshow.com/outline, and see the the full DNIB full report. But I also have an article to Domain Gang, who I like. Theo publishes all sorts of different stuff, funny stuff, but also a lot of news articles. So you can check that out. But so .com registration was slightly up from that second quarter last year, because he does this. This was after the second quarter of 2025, and he shows it. But I don't know. I find it valuable, and that really shows you how minimal that the other extensions have in registrations. And you can imagine some are in the hundreds of thousands, some in just the 5 digits, and then there's a few that are even less than that. I mean, quite a few. I think somebody mentioned there's 1,235 TLDs now, or that are active. Um, and we know people are really adopting. The general public is really starting to understand that other extensions, work and are live and are similar or the same as .com. You can build on them, and I think .ai is really doing some, really making an impact with regards to that. We know from .xyz.io, the .net.org, and other extensions have always let people know that other extensions exist. But now I think with just younger folks, new companies that are raising money off other extensions, that the floodgates are really opening up for people to recognize, I need a domain name maybe for my business, but I certainly don't need a .com. And that I always believed was going to impact the value of .com. And I'll finish this little diatribe. It's not the right word, but I'll use it anyway. Could be the right word, but really there's better. Look at the top names. They're the first to go up, the last to go down. They're still doing fantastic. So singleword.coms are still doing fantastic. It's when we start seeing, and I saw some weakness in those the last few years, meaning there's a lot of folks who have great single words, and I'm not going to mention them because they're friends' portfolio, great single words. They've been trying to sell them for 20 years, and they've already went through and had conversations with the top prospects, the top 5 prospects for some of these great words. Basically, companies that use the billion-dollar companies that you think would be attracted to these singleword.coms. So anyway, I think we still hear about the big sales, but I believe that's the market to watch. When that starts weakening, then we know, well, everything else has already been hurt by then. But many times domain investors will get hurt, their portfolio, they won't sell stuff, they won't know, they think it's just the market's slowing down. They just won't take it, basically take the indications that, the domain market is really diluted with all these other extensions, and it's very, very difficult to invest in, meaning there's less investable names. But when you're in a room talking to domain investors, no one wants to hear that. All right, so I wanted to get to our
Hey, Todd,
second.
if
Yeah,
I can,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, just a comment that I always find most interesting, not just the differential between com and everything else, but the renewal rates for me are the most interesting thing, because it tells you a couple things. One is the real health of the TLD. So you have .com renewal rates at 75%, which is great. You have .net at 78% and org at 77%, right? That's great for TLDs. TLDs should be in the 70 to 80% range, and COM actually should be in the 75% range because of how long it's been around. And generally, after you renew a name 1 year, chances are you're going to renew it again and again and again and again. And so, renewal percentages for the healthy TLDs are in that high percentage. Plus, remember that when you buy a name off of an expired names auction, that counts as a renewal, not a new registration. Even though, it counts for this in this perspective as a renewal. In the UDRP, it counts as a new registration, but for numbers wise, it's a renewal. But then you look at some of the new GTLDs, and you see that XYZ has 22% renewal. You have .shop with 11%, .site with 16%. What that tells me is that, yeah, something like an XYZ has 4.6 million names, but most of those are probably given away, either given away for free or it's such a low cost that it's negligible. But when it comes to renewal time and paying the actual price for those names, 1 out of 5 people are doing it in the XYZ case. And in the case of .shop, 1 out of every 10. So, some of these TLDs that are boasting that they have 4 million registrations or even 2 million registrations, you drill down to the numbers and they're not quite what they seem. And, as someone who has consulted a number of companies doing acquisitions, this is one of the first things I point to say, just ignore that 4.6 million number and look at the renewal percentages, because that's what's important. That's your true income, because you're not generally, these TLDs aren't getting any money for the initial registration. Now, some might say, well, yeah, if you give away a name for free and you get 10% renewal, that's 10% you may never have had. So, that's not the worst thing in the world, but it does, give you more of an idea of what the true revenue is going to be like for operating a TLD like that. That's kind of the first observation. And the second one is, I find it interesting because, uh, obviously I was at New Star for many years and was with them when they acquired the .biz top level domain. Um, and, they since sold it off to GoDaddy. And I'll tell you that since GoDaddy has had the name, you don't even see Biz on this list of top 10 GTLDs, which ends at 1.6 million. And when I was at New Star, we had over 2 million names. Now it's not even at 1.6. I'm not sure what it is. Um, I'm kind of looking around to see if I can find reliable statistics on that. But it goes to show you that a registry that also owns the largest registrar doesn't necessarily equate to power in selling that TLD. You can see the same thing with .club, which has shrunk at least in half since GoDaddy acquired it. And what it's telling me is either their registrar is truly ineffective at marketing new GTLDs, or they're not even focusing on it at all, and they don't care whether it's them as the registry or anyone else. That they're just not putting any money or effort into it, which is a shame, because you'd think, again, having a registrar that sells more than 50% of the new registrations, you would think that would give a boost to the TLDs that they control, and it's actually been sort of the opposite. So I find that interesting.
Yeah, I do too, and I have some comments. And Jeff, you brought up some good points. David, do you have any observations about these? Basically, we're talking about reservation or registrations and renewal rates for all the TLDs from .com to GTLDs like .site, .shop that Jeff was mentioning to CCTLDs like .eu and .de. Any comments, David?
Well, it's interesting that that .xyz is like last in line there, but that's like 10th. So 4.6 million registrations. I don't know if it's means anything. Their renewal percentage is only 22%. So that
Well, when
shows
you
that
say
there's
last in line, they're
not
thinking, no, we're top 10. There's a lot of,
yeah, top
there's a
10.
lot of, and anyway, just to give, Jeff was talking about renewal rates, and it is important in the GTLDs, or I'm sorry, across all TLDs. .com had so many registrations, 158 million, but they had that 75% renewal rate, which is unbelievable, which is fantastic. And then .net
Which
had
is why
seven.
they up. That's why they upped their guidance for the year, because the renewal percentage is high. It's like a whole full point higher, I think, than last year at this time. So, um, yeah, Verisign's doing well, really well, revenue wise with .com, which also means, and it's going to range into, I'm sure, a debate I'll have with ICANN. which is that'll mean that their money is going to increase. Not only is their money going to increase because of the fee increases that they gave all registries and registrars, but now that the renewal percentage is higher for COM and they have more registrations, ICANN's going to, definitely have a pretty big surplus this year. So anyway, I look at the health of not all CCTLDs make their renewal numbers public, but like .fr at 83% and EU at 84%. I mean, to me, that's incredible. And they have, FR has 4.3 million names under management and EU has 3.7. Now, with the 83% renewal rate, those TLDs are in a much better position than an XYZ or a Top or Info, even though those three TLDs may technically have more registrations or domains under management. So you got to kind of drill down into the numbers to see the real health of a TLD. But for me, renewal percentage is number one always.
I like the .eu renewal rates, and I think it's caused by their really low fees. For €5 a year, it's super cheap. It hasn't gone up in years, and I think that it's a nonprofit, so they're not planning on increasing the prices. And I think that's very healthy for the EU. So,
Well, and it means that people are using it too, right? So, and having been in Prague and in European countries in the last few years, you are definitely seeing .eu more. So if you're an investor, these are the TLDs, with the high renewal rates. That's the one you really want to invest in. Not, no offense. I mean, I like XYZ and all, but with a 22% renewal rate, a lot of names are going to drop, and that means that investors aren't likely going to make back their investment. Now, I'd like to see where AI falls on that list now, but it probably won't make a top 10 till, well, I don't know if it will make a top 10 because that's a pretty high number of names, but it still has been growing.
What David mentioned and what Jeff just mentioned, .eu has an 84% renewal rate. It only has 3.7 million domain registrations. I don't know the rules on registering .eu names, but Jeff, who doesn't even invest in domain names, brings up a great point. When you see renewal rates like that and you see, okay, .eu, and he's saying, when you're over in Europe, you start seeing the EU extension being used a lot more. All right, well, it tells us there's only, less than 4 million domains registered. The ones that have it seem to be renewing at a real high rate, 84%. It's becoming adopted more. Well, that to me would indicate, hey, okay, so there's probably, with only 3.7 million registrations, there's a lot of great names that have never been registered probably. I don't know if you can register them if you're outside the .eu, if you're outside Europe. I don't know. So I'm sure somebody knows. But the point is, as opposed to, like Jeff mentioned, a .xyz, domain investors love, oh shit, so there's only 22% renewal there. As those names start dropping, people think, well, shit, I love that, a drop name. Oh, like I said, if it has never been registered before, people think, well, yeah, no one wanted. It's not the case with .com. Maybe it's a little different. There's been so saturated, so many registrations, but with all these CCTLDs and these GTLDs, looking at what are people really adopting out there, and especially with the CCTLDs, we mentioned .fr is 83.5%. So in France, they got a big renewal rate. I see .tv not even on, the top. We thought by now, if that would really stick, that would have had more registrations, or at least be in the top 10. Jeff brought up at GoDaddy, they're the registry and registrar, or registry and a big registrar, but registry for .biz, and .biz is nowhere to be seen. Why not? Well, they're not marketing it, and still with their platform of having the largest registrar, he mentioned, why wouldn't that, be, sort of perfect combination? You own the registry, you have the biggest registrar, it's not a bad extension. Why not? And I think they did the same with .tv. Once they took that over, it seems like it's done, it hasn't done as well as it did prior in .club. He brought up as well. So GoDaddy starts either owning or managing these extensions, and it certainly, if when that happened in the past, we thought, okay, GoDaddy's taking over .club. A lot of people invested because they thought, now we're going to get some traction. Same with .tv. Oh, this is good news. It's never, it's not proven to be, increase the registration. It's done really just the opposite. So anyway, I think these numbers are interesting if somebody really wants to. They're easy to understand, but just slow down and take a look at them. And if you're going to invest in CCTLDs, well, shit, I think there's really some great stuff to look at. You see what the .uk is doing as opposed to .co.uk. All right. And anyway, there's links on the outline if you want to check it out. dnlshow.com/outline. That's that domain name industry brief. I think you can just go to DNIB.
In fact, the interesting thing is for .club, when GoDaddy acquired it, it was around 1.6 million names. Today, according to NTLD stats, they're at 644,000. So, yeah. So, that's do math here. That's way more than a half of the registrations lost. Now, that can mean a couple things. Number one, it could mean that .club pumped its numbers with low registrations before the acquisition to make it look better. Or GoDaddy's just doing nothing to promote the names, and therefore it's just tanking. It's probably a little bit of both, but um, again, that's why I'm always a hawk when people hire me to look at acquisition numbers and whether a TLD is worth the value that they're putting on it.
So
Before we
I
get
know
to,
Colin
go ahead, Dave.
Campbell. He used to own the .club extension, and he really pumped it. He worked it on Clubhouse, and he hit all the communities. He did a lot of in-depth marketing with a team of people. He hired consultants, people who would pump it, chill it, whatever. And so that's what it took to get the numbers up. And then he sold to GoDaddy. GoDaddy hasn't done anything with it since. Nobody's heard anything about it since. It's just like, why do I have a .club? And it's why it's died out.
I remember that in Coffee.club, the gentleman that owned that. I've talked to him several times. I really liked him. Forget his name now. Very popular domain, but he
Jeff Sass was the one who
sure Jeff and
was
Colin ran
marketing it, right? And then now Jeff's at .art, which is interesting because if you look at .art, since Jeff has been in charge there, they continue to go up. Now, granted, it's not in the millions of names, but I believe since Jeff got there, it was something like 100, and I would say it was 2022, was something like 160,000 names at that point, and now it's at over 300. So he's doubled it since he's taken it over. He's good at what he does, and so it just shows you that what knowledgeable people and good marketing people can do with the TLD if they work it, and it shows you in the opposite what someone who maybe has a large distribution channel may not have the same kind of results if they don't kind of push it.
There's big promise in owning a GTLD. If you're interested in applying in the next round, reach out to Jeff and I at tldstrategies.com, and we'll talk about it. Talk about how you can successfully apply, and then talk about the obligations that you have once you successfully acquire a GTLD and you become a registry, and all the issues that you're going to need to face. But it can be very prosperous, but for very few become successful. But like you just brought up with .art, I wanted to say that was Bill McClure, who when .club became, or basically when it first came into existence, they had Bill was always around Coffee.club, and he already had a coffee company. I believe Coffee.org is one of his names, and he ran. But basically it was like going to state fairs, and he was the one who, used the Ginsu knife, and like, look, it worked for his chain of restaurants. But so coffee.club was always like a mainstay promoting, Bill was promoting the .club, and I'll tell you, kept the boat above water and worked, and then they just kept promoting, and finally got it sold to GoDaddy. And like David said, yeah, it doesn't seem like much has happened since then. Before we get to our cases, we have one case, OLA, David, that I'm going to go to you as just a news article about this domain, Ola.com, a rideshare company out of India, tried to get that three-letter. Before we get to that, I wanted to mention two things. We're going to talk about a question that a guy had online about registering a trademark that would be an exact match to a domain name, and how he felt that it's going to disvalue or whatever. I don't know the word, but basically make the domains worthless. I'll get to that in just a second. But Jeff, one quick question about ICANN. So you heard about, they settled this $77 million lawsuit with Tanzanica King. They call it, what they call her, Tanzi. What was her name? I know
Yep.
you familiar
Yep.
with her.
Tansy. Yep. That's
And
right.
she had been there over 20 years. She filed this big lawsuit. Um, I guess it's private, I'm sure, the settlement, but do you know anything about this settlement? And basically it's done now, right? So everybody can move on. So you got to pay
I
it.
mean, it's done because they filed the voluntary dismissal at the with the court. But what that amount and what the promises made were, no idea. And ICANN generally makes its budget and expenditures known. So the question is whether we'll be able to derive what the amount of the settlement was based on future reporting of numbers. But I'm sure it's not the intent of ICANN to release that figure, and we may never know.
I had that in the news, but no big deal. So I wanted to get to, so I can settle this. Was it a sexual harassment claim, a harassment claim, just some bullshit claim? I don't know. It doesn't matter because it's settled now. So we don't know how.
Well, obviously it wasn't a bullshit claim. It
Yeah.
was it was a real claim, and there was some real things going on there that ICANN did not want it to go to a trial, didn't want it to go to discovery, and so yeah, I think we'll never know.
Always the other side says it could have been nothing there, but we had to settle because we just couldn't take the lawyer fee. All right, we know it. So this gentleman, I was posting, do you have a domain name legal question? All right, so I put that in the post for our show link and said, come on in, bring it. Well, a guy posted burger mustard. I hope he's here in the crowd, listening anonymously even, but he asked the question. I said, come on in. I already knew there would be several responses. I'm going to get ready to go to David. I know he has a response, but I wanted to give some background. He said, it's all about the trademark registration. The TLD doesn't mean anything in capital letters. I don't know if this was Trump or not. Anyway, yes, he puts, doesn't matter. Yes, wants me to agree with him or want first to market with a legit USPTO registration holds all the cards and zaps the values of domain names tied to niche markets. Yes. And I said, give an example. So he did give an example. And this topic hits close to home because a lot of friends, including myself, but mostly friends, have some great domain names. And people think, well, you want a lot of money for it, then I'm just going to go ahead and start my company with this domain name or, with this name. And then you're not going to be able to use it. I just stepped in front of you. Well, there's a lot more to it than just thinking you can set up a name, get a trademark on a name, especially if it's generic and you plan on doing business in that field. But we'll get to it. But anyway, this guy says, say I start a new software company and I want the name to be Agenix AI. So he went ahead and put Agenix with an S, Agenix AI. I search and find out that the domain investor number one owns agenixai.com and wants $150,000 for it. Okay, I search again and I find that the domain investor number two owns agenix.ai and wants 75,000 for it. Well, first of all, Agenix.ai was just purchased today by James Booth, I guess, on Namecheap for 32 grand. So yeah, he's not going to be selling it for 75. You know, every once in a while he sells stuff maybe 3 times, but he's probably wanting, yeah, closer to a couple hundred grand for that. But anyway, so this guy says, I'm wanting to start this company. It's a software company, but agenixai.com is for sale for 150. Agenix.ai, the guy wants 75. So I decided to start my company with the hand registered agenixai.info, and he submits Agenix.ai to the USPTO for trademark protection under certain classes. He doesn't say, which classes, but he said it was a software company, so we'll just guess about it. And then he says time goes by and finally get approved for those classes. Well, first of all, time goes by. That's a year, 2 years, and then the trademark attorney, the attorney seeing whether or not to approve this, is going to look and think, are these descriptive? What classes are you doing this in? Because he may just not get approved for a certain class, or we don't know what his he acts like his application. So we'll just assume he gets approved in those classes. We don't know which classes he's talking about, but he says, as a result, the open market value of agenixai.com and agenix.ai are extremely diminished. So because of their extreme niche value, they're basically now going to be worthless since he's got a trademark on it. And then he goes on with one example, and I'm about ready to pass it to David. And then Jeff, you can comment on this. Is sure, if someone wants to open a pizza restaurant and call it Agenix AI, go for it. But if someone buys agenixai.com and starts and markets software services, his USPTO registration for Agenix AI will be kryptonite to anyone else using the name Agenix AI. I have a lot to say about this, but first I'll throw it to David and then Jeff, if you've read this, and make some comments of why this guy sort of is, he's not seeing the full picture and why he's not completely correct. But in some senses, USPTO mark means something when you get it first. But David, examine this a little bit and let us know your thoughts.
Well, a lot of these issues we're going to be talking about today in the OLA case, OLA.com, and voices.ai case. So he said he can build on .info and get a registration based on that. Well, agenixai.info is merely descriptive of the services, and he's going to get a supplemental registration, which is useless for a UDRP. And then he's going to have to do it for 5 years, spend millions of dollars in advertising to make that .info go anywhere. And then maybe he can go on get a 2F registration like in voices.com. But in voices.com, the trademark was actually voices.com, not voices. And so he's going to have the same exact problem with agenixai.info. He's not going to get a registration for that. And so a lot of people think that they can get away with it. But there are so many different kinds of services you can do with agentic AI. And right now we're just like scratching the surface. In a year from now, it'll be totally different. And maybe the name Agenix will be presumed in every single product and service offered by any consultant. And so therefore, it's not even going to be that valuable in a couple of years from now. So I don't, his argument fails because it doesn't make any business sense. You don't start a big business on a .info. It's never going to succeed. You could do like I have solanabeach.info, and my idea was put a temperature monitor there and surf conditions and places you can go to eat in Solana Beach. But you know what? I never built it out. It's never going to get traffic unless I build it out. That's a huge SEO push. That's what this guy has to do. And he's not going to be able to do it. It's a waste of time and energy. If I own solanabeach.com, I'd get traffic from day one. I would, be able to monetize it from day one. And so that's where he's missing the picture. Doesn't have any business sense.
Jeff, did you understand what this guy was saying? Because I got some comments here.
No, is there an art? Like, where are you reading from? Like,
sorry, I should have posted the link, but if you go to my timeline and you'll see when I first posted go to my, and let me see, it's probably down there, 1, 2. After the little tiny horse, keep going down. It's from July 25th when I posted the
Oh, on X.
yeah,
Let's see.
on accident it says, "Do you have a domain name legal question?" If you click on there, then you'll see his comments, and you can breeze through it real fast because I'll make some comments and you'll understand. So I want to address, David, what you said. If Carvana had gotten Carvana.info and just built on that, and then somebody comes around and in the Carvana.com say was registered after, then Carvana has a argument to say this was you know a unique name, a whatever we call it. It's such a unique name. I forget the word they use in trademarks. Fanciful. So,
It's not fanciful, it's suggestive.
well, okay, well, but I'm saying, say if somebody used googly goo dot info, and then somebody else comes along with the .com, the company, if it's a truly unique domain or name, and they're on another extension, they're going to have rights to that. And they have a trademark that precedes somebody else's domain registration. They could win and they could succeed in taking away the person's .com because they started some crazy name on another extension that just is flat out unique. What this gentleman's talking about is Agenix AI. In his example, yeah, if he started a pizza company, Agenix AI, and he said on .info and said we sell pizzas, all right, then somebody else comes along or starts trying to sell pizzas under that name, Agenix AI, he would have a case. It's not descriptive of what he's doing, Agenix AI. He's talking about offering a software company that, and I'm assuming, he didn't say, but I'm assuming that his software company provides Agentic AI. He has the fucking S in there, but I'm assuming it provides Agentic AI capabilities or services or a Agentic AI platform or however you want to word it. So if he's offering Agentic AI, that's when David's right, saying you're not going to get a trademark on, you're descriptive. You're offering software that offers Agentic AI capabilities, and you're calling it Agenix AI, and right, you're not going to be able to trademark that. It'll get put in the supplemental register, which means, all right, this person's using this name. It's unprotectable. Okay. It's just like saying, I want to sell apples at apples.com. All right, you can, but somebody else can also, sell apples at apples.info, apples.whatever. It's when you're using a name that, and people don't do this too often, but you don't go to computers.com and they're selling bicycles. All right, if that's the name of their bicycle shop, computers.com or computers, they can actually establish a trademark, establish a mark and successfully get it registered through the USPTO. That said, you can't sell computers at computers.com and tell everybody else, flip them off and say you can't use computers. That's what this guy is basically trying to do. And you'll see there's a lot of people that own great, we call them category killer domain names. And then somebody comes in and tries to use that name for that generic sense. They want to come in and handyman.com. Okay. My partner owns that. Handyman. Somebody wants to start a website offering um, a handyman service at handyman. Well, that doesn't prevent um, handyman. It doesn't diminish the value of handyman. Basically, it's, you could make an argument that it adds value to it. But the point is, you can't trademark something that it's describing what it does. So, I mean, how much more clear can we be on that? But this guy, um, Jeff, you probably read it now, basically was just saying, I'm going to go in. People feel this way all the time. I can't get these fucking domain names. I'm going to go ahead and start on this crazy extension, and then I'm going to prevent all you guys from using it. And that's not how it works. So I couldn't wait to bring this up. I hope he's listening. Burger mustard.
Yeah,
What
I
do you
mean
think,
the
Jeff?
the extension's irrelevant to the mark. So it's not really the domain name that creates the use. It's the actual use that creates it. So you may go out and buy a domain name that you think is pretty cool, but that doesn't give you any kind of rights to anything. Um, I mean, it may give you rights to the domain if you're the first to register it and there's no one else out there, but that doesn't give you any kind of trademark rights, because the USPTO just sees a whether it's .com, .info, .ai, whatever, it sees that as an address, like a post office or like a street address. And so regardless of whether it's in com, net, org, info, AI, or whatever, that doesn't establish any rights at all.
Now we've been doing these rooms for
Doesn't
so long. People, hold on, Brad. Ragoose was before you, and Brad. Hold on, just for a second. I mean, I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say because I was mentioning we've been doing these rooms so long. Everybody's pretty slick now on knowing. All right. I mean, we had to do it over and over, but when can someone have a trademark and you don't have to get it registered? Common law marks are just fucking as solid, but it's just harder to prove and you don't get some penalties and rewards and more I mean more protection when you do get it registered. But okay, Ragu, welcome to the stage. What comment or question do you have?
is that to me? I was having a low connection.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, we can't hear you now. We could hear you for a second, but now we can't hear you. You there? Okay, Ragu, you're out back. I hope you're doing good. Come back. Try again. But Bradley, what's up? Nice to see you. What comment or question do you have about this?
Okay. I couldn't wait. No, thank you for inviting me up. I've been away for a while. I just wanted to come in. This sounds like deals with intentionality. This guy has, ill intention. And I think that becomes part of this whole. There's this, like, if I can't get the name, I'm going to prevent them from getting the name. Or, you know what I mean? This is kind of like a vindictive type of registration, in my view.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, Jeff. You and David have it's a good point. It's like, but you can do that. You can basically. There's domain names. You see that you can acquire them. It may be a little bit like, man, heck with those guys. I'm going to go ahead. If the guy, whether his intention is he's mad at the domain owners because the price is too high, or basically just like, listen, I can't let these guys get in my way. I'm going to start my car service called Diamond Auto, and I can't help it if I can't afford diamondauto.com, diamondauto. Whatever, and I'm going to go ahead and start on diamondauto.info. So I don't mind people thinking I'm going to start my business under the name I want, and if I can't get the domain, I'm going to get something similar or whatever. But if you're really going to start a business, as Jeff said, if you're really doing business, do your business. Now you want to make sure that no one predates you doing business with that name in your area, especially. But if you don't see a USPTO registration, but you do need to just do regular Google checks. Is somebody doing Diamond Auto Repair? And you realize, geez, okay, there's not a USPTO. They're in Minneapolis. I'm in fucking Naples. You can still do it. Okay, but I'm just saying that because you guys have learned a lot. I was saying about intention here. What does it matter? Do you have any comments, David or Jeff?
Well, why I don't know if attention means much, but let's talk about this in the context of the OLA decision, because this is really on this exact same subject. Because the Indian ride-hailing company, they knew they couldn't get a .com when they started in 2012. They purposely bided their time and filed their UDRP right at a most opportune moment they could. Even then, it wasn't good enough. But let's go into the facts of that case so that we can un- unwrap all these issues, because
Okay, tell
otherwise
them
we're
what
just
it is.
talking in the air.
OLA.com is a domain name that was just in the news. We don't have it really on our review today, but David, go ahead and give some background to it.
Okay, so the domain was registered a long time ago. The previous owner got it in an auction. He bought it in 2006. He was borrowing money from his friend who, um, kept on giving him more and more money because he had problems. And then in 2017, the current respondent gave him a $170,000 loan, and the domain was pledged as collateral. At that time, the domain was supposed to be transferred into his name, but still in the control of the previous owner who died. Well, the guy died in 2021. His son has the exact same name, and his son had the key, the access to the online portals registrar to do whatever he wanted with the domain names and other stuff that he had. And so this guy, his name is Knepper, based out of Oregon, and he got the UDRP because he's the current registrant. There was a court decision earlier, I think it was this year in March, and the day after the court decision, the ride-hailing company talks to the son, saying, "Hey, we want to get this domain name. Can you transfer it to us?" But the son didn't have ownership of it the day before the court ordered the transfer of the domain name to Knepper. So they were trying to negotiate with somebody who had the keys to the domain name, but didn't actually have legal ownership. So that was bad faith. Now there was allegations of collusion on both sides. John Berryhill represented Knepper, and the Knepper won, got to keep his name, even though he got the domain transferred this year and the trademarks pre-existed. There are, I think, so what John said was there's a whole lot of trademarks for Ola in the United States, at least 40 of them, and Knepper had no duty to do any kind of searches because he acquired the name as collateral to a loan agreement. He wasn't registering the domain name, so his rights are piggybacking on the previous owner's rights that date back to 2006. OLA stands for online actions, and he had it pointed to his watch site where on eBay where he's selling some kind of watches, and so that was his business, and that was considered legitimate. A lot of times when you forward a domain name, it's not considered legitimate, but in this case it was, so that was good. But there are these people who think that, oh, we don't want to pay $1 million for a 3-letter word.com. It's like, oh, you're beneath us. We don't have to pay you. We'll just steal it through a UDRP complaint. And that's what they try to do, and they were unsuccessful. And congratulations to John. It seems like he's been busy lately doing a lot of cases, and he's been winning, so that's great.
The one thing I wanted to add, and I think the real important factor is that what they found was that this respondent was a true successor in interest, which is very different than just having purchased the name, off of an auction, or just, um, being someone that just buys a domain from someone else. If you are a true successor in interest, which he was because by virtue of the collateral, then you will get the benefit of the original registration date, or at least the registration date of the prior owner. If you are purchasing a name like this, a Genix AI or whatever, then the buyer of that name will not have the benefit of the original registration date because it wasn't used. It was just a name that was up for sale, and B, it's an unrelated party. So it is, I kind of think of it in that way. Yeah, it's 3 letters, and so probably they wouldn't have had a chance anyway. But, for other domains, it's just important for investors to know that regardless of whether you get a trademark on your name, or or you've just purchased a domain name, any buyer that buys it from you will not be deemed necessarily, and almost never be deemed, a successor in interest unless they're taking over the entire business that you had. But if you never had a business, you were just a domain name investor, which is not considered use in commerce under the with the USPTO, then a purchaser is not going to be considered that successor in interest.
Is that because it was his son?
No. In this case, a couple of reasons. It was because of the son, but it was also, there was proof of the name being collateral from the existing purchaser. So in essence, that extended to the business as well. So yeah, if you enter into an agreement now with someone for a loan and the domain name is collateral and you default on your loan and the person who gave you the loan gets the domain name, then that will have the benefit of the um, original buyer because that was you acquired it as collateral. So you are a true successor in interest.
If you're sitting out there in the audience and you're thinking, I have a question about domain name law, raise your hand, come on up. We're going to be done with our cases pretty fast because these are 3 cases that we had on the docket for last week. We're going to try to go through them fast so we can get out of here early, but I did want to give folks a chance to ask their domain name legal questions. There's a lot of stuff, you get a cease and desist letter, or you're wondering if you should buy this person's name, or, anything. Raise your hand and come on up. Two
Can I,
announcements I
Todd,
want to make.
can I just say one more thing
Sure, go ahead.
about the? Didn't you say that the guy who got that agenticsai.info said he's going to smoke the other owners when he gets his trademark? Does that I know intention doesn't mean anything, but isn't that part of the whole psyche that a lot of people have, that they could get a different extension and then become the primary owner of it?
Well, he didn't say he was going to file a UDRP, because if they had that later on to show his intention was to try to get the domain from him in a way. So, but he didn't say I'm going to smoke him. He just said basically there's things that are going to be worthless once I do this, and they're not going to be worthless once he does that. And still, he needs to do what he said. If you can get this registration for this descriptive product, or service, whatever it is. If you're, like I said, if you're selling computers and you think you can keep other people from selling computers because you registered computers.info, he's just on agenticsai.info. Right, he just misled. He just doesn't, like I said, his example about, sure, if somebody wants to go sell pizzas on AgentXAI, that's right. He can too. That's a solid mark, okay? Because when people hear that, they don't think of pizzas, so it would be totally unique. Why'd you do that? That's funny. So, if you're not offering agentic AI services or a product or something that's really specifically related to that, then you can use this crazy name and use it for some other class. But he's trying to use it so then no one else can use it for Agentics AI, for agentic AI, which I think is the appropriate term. But so that's when you're wrong. That was the whole point of forget this guy. It's just when you think, hey, I'm going to use this term for what it's describing, and then I'm going to prevent other people from doing it, from using that term for the same reason. No, you can't do that. I mean, you can't keep people from using it for what it's described that it's doing. The 2 announcements I wanted to make. One, if you're in Los Angeles tomorrow night, there's a free concert, Taylor Swift at the Troubadour. I'm just lying now. There's a Doma Dev event that's in downtown Los Angeles. You can go to our outline. That's dnlshow.com/outline. And you'll see it's going to be downtown Los Angeles, 6:30 to 9:30 p.m. We're partying at the D3 office. D3 office, that's 700 South Flower, 10th floor. So they'd like if you RSVP'd. But anyway, so if you're in Los Angeles, we were, it was Braden posting someone at WhatsApp saying, hey, let's have this double as a Los Angeles domainer meetup. And I'm sure, D3, the people there were like, hey, we're open for it. If you're a real domainer and you want to come down, we're going to give you a presentation and try to sell you some timeshare. But you sit through the presentation, you can have tacos and see your friends if you want. So yes, there's going to be food. It's not a hackathon, but some pretty cool stuff. Anyway, I'm into it. I'm going to be down there early because I got a meeting with them before the event, and I can't wait to see a lot of my friends. And I know several of you guys are showing up, so I can't wait to see you tomorrow. It's going to be cool as ice. Okay, they just want an RSVP. So if you go to our outline at dnlshow.com/outline, you'll see the link where you can RSVP and get more details, and see you downtown LA tomorrow night. Be there. The other thing was I put on the outline, you can see the email address to Camila over at the Internet Commerce Association. It's KAMILA at internetcommerce.org. Well, we're having a domainer social. Okay, it's like Arif has a domain social. This is for ICA members. It's going to be August 20th. That's a Wednesday, 10:30 a.m. Pacific, 1:30 1:30 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be just an hour. Basically, last time we did it, 100 people show up on a Zoom, and it's fun. You see everybody, and you're like, oh, look at you. Well, you aged, and you get to see everybody. You don't have to come off. You don't have to show your picture. You can stay on whatever they call it, and then you can stay on mute too, so we don't have to see you or hear you. But it is a fun social gathering. It's something, we have these ICA calls, usually a couple a month, where they'll have someone do an AMA or a special guest. But this happens to be a social, so we can all talk. We can all have a great time. If you're not an ICA member, that's why I put Camila's email address. You can email her and say, Todd said there's some special going on. And she can say, he doesn't know what he's talking about. And it's still just say, I want to be there at the social. I hear there's going to be some fireworks. And so, I'm just telling you in advance. It's less than a month out, August 20th. Maybe 3 weeks from today, sounds like to me. All right, or 3 weeks from tomorrow. So join us there, internetcommerce.org. And it is a cool organization to be part of. You can learn more at internetcommerce.org. Okay, we're going to get to our cases today, the ones we didn't get to last week. This one will make you mad, make me mad, and I can barely remember it now, but the domain is cannes.ai. So a lot of Americans don't know how to pronounce it. So I'm a hillbilly from Indiana, and I'm going to say it's can, just can. Some people say con or can, can, CANNES, the city in Italy. Is that France or Italy? Okay, doesn't matter. Okay, so it's the city. That's in France, right, Jeff?
Yes.
Yeah. Should know. I mean, I've been. Okay. So
And
anyway.
the language of the decision should give that
Oh,
away
that's
too.
right. I had to translate this from French to English. And yeah, the big film festival there. But anyway, so this is a city in France, and they were the city of Cannes was the complainant in this case, versus the German individual Ignacio Ioso. So basically, this city had owned the trademark to their city name since 2006. Surprised it wasn't, longer than that. I'm sure they could probably show a common law mark that they've, been around longer than that, and they're known by their own name. But in this case, the complainant said the respondent registered the domain solely to sell it to the complainant, and well above the respondent's out-of-pocket expenses. Well, the respondent is a German citizen. Like I said, he's in the AI sector, and he was going to use it, or he thought, maybe the city is into it. So, he thought, I have several different rights to this. I can use it myself in the sector that I'm in, or it was cannes.ai. He could have, some AI website to where answer questions about the city, or use it as a travel site. He knew it's a geo. I'm certain I got rights to it. But the complainant said that the respondent approached him saying they could probably benefit even more than him from the name, and had already had some content on there, but just basically offered it to him. And they immediately were upset and said, we're going to file this UDRP against you. And it really, got out of hand from there, because the respondent said, hey, I want to do a potential partnership with you guys. And the complainant said, no, we're going to file this UDRP, and I'm not going to give you what happened, the decision, because I'm going to first to Jeff since he can speak French, and then to you, David. Tell me what you think about this decision. Single member
I,
panelist.
I cannot speak French at all, but I did put the entire decision into Chat GPT to translate it for me. So assuming that all of that translation was correct, look, I think in this case, it just seemed like, I mean, this case doesn't bother me. It bothered you, I guess, but it didn't bother me because he essentially got the name and then thought, you know what, the only person that really wants to buy this or do something with it is, is the city. And so I'm going to make them a proposal in some PowerPoint presentation he submitted, but I have no idea what was in that PowerPoint presentation. But essentially, uh, he kind of, no different than just buying a name and then reaching out to the trademark owner and charging some incredible amount. Who knows what this PowerPoint presentation was, getting the city to do or what he wanted the city to do. And, it's kind of like an admission that I bought this name so that I could get something out of you, the city, or get something out of the goodwill of someone else. And then I think there was another letter that got sent that said, hey, by the way, if you don't want it, I can always, sell it to an actor or someone else to get it and, they could exploit it. And that was seen as a threat. And I think that that's correct. Um, I think had he just had the name and not done anything with it, or just had it for sale and didn't reach out to the trademark owner, then it would be a much better case for the respondent. But he kind of dug his own grave in this one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
David.
So I analyzed the case. I don't read French very well, so I had to put it through Claude Opus actually, and it did a really great breakdown. So one of the things it says the flaw in the decision was that the panelists did not examine the geographic significance of the term cans. And I did a USPTO trademark search, and oddly enough, there are sports teams and advertising companies out of the UK and Netherlands, and even the Cannes Film Festival have all have US trademarks, but they are not the same as a city. So there are multiple potential users. And I would have, tried to collaborate potentially with Festival of the Cannes or Cannes Film Festival. But the fatal mistakes that he did were the language he used in his letters. He is German with a Spanish last name. The panelist was Spanish. I don't know why the decision's in French, but I think something was lost in translation because a lot of things were misconstrued probably through these emails that the respondent sent to the city, and that was, really what caused him to lose a name. But had he defended it properly, had he cited some good cases like City of Paris versus Jeff Walter, or the Kerr Welkenstein, St. Moritz versus stmoritz.com, or even the Barcelona case, that would have been useful. Had he built out the site and put some content about the film festival, past film festivals, and asked me questions about the previous film festivals and that type of AI service, that would have been, not infringing the trademark at all and additive to like the value that it's providing. But unfortunately, all he had was a landing page that the registrar put up, a German one, so there were no ads. But that wasn't good enough for the panelists. And so the panelists ordered a transfer, which is kind of nuts because he really, I think, failed in a proper analysis of this. He's not a well-known panelist. He's, his name is Eduardo Feno, based out of, well, he got his law degree in Italy, but he's based out of Barcelona, so Spanish background, multilingual probably. Yeah, older guy, but I think he went cited for the brand owner, even though there are other brand owners out there. So there could have been many defenses, but it was poorly defended.
David, your audio is about 80% of ours, I believe. People thumbs up if I'm correct. But so there's something to learn from this case. One, the reason why it upset me a little bit was because if someone registered Las Vegas.ai and they contacted Las Vegas, the city, and said, "I want to sell this to you," I believe, they have the rights to do it, but Jeff and David brought it up specifically. If you even bought Las Vegas.ai and the very first thing you did was contact them and send them an email and say, "Hey, I bought this name because I thought of you. I knew you guys would want to use it. I was the first one to get it, and I want to sell it to you for $1 million." Well, you're targeting. So like what Brad was talking about, does intention mean something? It absolutely does. Even when you think you have clear rights to something. So you think, I bought Las Vegas.ai. You still cannot just immediately target one of the mark holders, and your letter and your verbiage and all your actions are going to be added up. And if it shows your intention was to buy it, to sell it to that particular mark holder, that is cyber squatting, even though this particular name had numerous defenses. You just didn't need to really, like I said, target one mark holder. So the point is, I'm sure all of us agree, if you had a chance to buy Las Vegas in a GTLD, and um, you certainly have rights to it, but you just immediately, you don't want to let a mark holder know, "I bought this because I was thinking solely about you. I want to sell it to you. I want to partner with you. You're the one." That's what happened in this case. And
Yeah. Also, and also in Europe, geographic names are not weak in terms of protection for trademarks. In fact, they're usually stronger because they have other statutory protections. So I see Las Vegas is a little bit different because in the US we don't value geographic names, but in Europe and the EU, there are treaties between the countries to recognize the geographic names. And so if you have an EU trademark, which I believe this the city does, um, then I think it's a lot stronger. And so in Europe, they certainly consider geographic names to have much more protection than you would in the United States.
So the domain owner lost the name, CANNES.ai. It was ruled a transfer, so I'm sure we'll see that go into the city of Cannes here soon. Okay, our second case for today is the domain sequent.com, SEQUENT.com. The complainant in this case is a company called Sequent, and the respondent was James Booth, who I just mentioned. James earlier, you guys, many of you know him, domain investor. He bought Agenix.ai earlier today for 32 grand. I guess he wanted it at an auction. But James, prolific domain investor, he picked up this name um, in the aftermarket from a company that was named Sequent. The previous owner was Sequent Software. And that's who James picked this name up from. He was represented in this case by friend of the show, ICA General Counsel Zach Muscovich. Okay, so this was Sequent versus James Booth. So this Swiss company, Sequent, that provides wealth planning, said, we have common law rights to Sequent.com. They're on Sequent.limited. Okay, they meant they have common law rights to Sequent, not Sequent.com, but they're on Sequent.limited. So always when I see a company that's on an alternate extension and then is filing against the .com, you automatically know there's some envy. They want the name. It's a great name, great brand name. There was already a company named Sequent Software that was using it. James buys the domain, and then he resolves the name to an Adam Lander with the price tag of $1,995,000. Well, the complainant said during the course of the proceeding, so this was the case. I remember talking with Zach about it now. This was the case where the complainant, after they had filed, reached out to the respondent and said, we'd like to buy it. They didn't come to an agreement, but the complainant said, now that we know who you are, we'd like to withdraw the case. This is what I remember Zach saying. And then Zach said, uh, James said, no, we want to go ahead and have a decision. You guys have already filed. You guys don't have a right to this. We'd like to get a decision from a panelist. It was a 3-member panel, and we'd like to get a finding of reverse domain name hijacking as well. So they went ahead with the case. There's a few more facts to it. I'll leave some of the meat on the bone for you guys. Anybody who wants to jump in first, the domain sequent.com.
Okay, well, I mean, I'll jump in on the reverse domain name hijacking. Um, in this case, I guess they made two arguments as to why RDNH doesn't apply, although one of them I think is BS. The other one is legit. The one I think is BS is the fact that they say, well, the domain was under privacy protection, and therefore it was a lack of transparency. And so the lack of transparency limited the ability of the panel to conclude that the complainant knew or should have known they couldn't succeed under the policy. I think that's wrong. I think, first of all, um, I believe in this case, the organization name was not under privacy protection. And number two, all names are under privacy protection because of GDPR. So to even use that, and this is Warwick Rothney, he's one of the panelists, it's his kind of go-to thing, where he doesn't recognize that GDPR actually is what that it's not the purchase of a privacy service that is the reason names are redacted. It's under the law, and so long as the information you get back from the registrar is accurate information, you can't make the argument that they were trying to shield their information. But the argument that does have some merit is once the complainant supposedly found out who it was and saw the response, the complainant tried to withdraw it. And so, which is the right thing to do, and something we want to encourage complainants to do, is to withdraw their cases, uh, at a point in time if they realize they have no case. So I think the panel felt we really shouldn't punish the complainant for trying to, for a case that it wanted to withdraw, and it only was continued because the respondent wanted to continue it. I think that's a good reason to deny RDNH, because there was nothing, um, in theory, there was not much that the complainant could have known prior to filing it. When it found out, based on the response and the identification of the registrant, it decided that it may not have had a case, and then said, hey, I want to withdraw it. And the respondent said no. And there was nothing, what more could the complainant have done? So I think it was the right outcome, but only for that reason, not for the other privacy reason.
Right. It was a complaint denied, no RDNH. And like Jeff said, the panel, as a 3-member panel, said, well, we're not going to rule that this person abused the system when they originally filed it, didn't have some information. Now they realize, okay, here's who the respondent is. We understand. We don't believe now that he did register it in bad faith, so we'd like to withdraw. So the 3-member panel said we're not going to say they're abusing the system. They tried to correct themselves, but this domain owner wanted a ruling because it was already on its way, and so we are ruling on behalf of the domain owner, complaint denied. And this, I think, I don't know how it can help in the future. Somebody else could file a UDRP or even a lawsuit against the name. I don't think they're going to, but the only thing you can do is just show, hey, we did this before, but they're not going to say, we don't care before, then make your same argument. That's what you need to do, because this really doesn't have any precedence anywhere. I mean, I don't know. David, did you get back up here? And he was moving around. All I said was he was about 80%. We could still hear him good. I just meant his volume was about 80% of the rest of us.
So it was your fault then, right?
Yeah.
Because you
So
told him.
I said one thing. I said basically, I just proved him again. I say one little thing. There he is. He's back. What's up, Dave? Comment do you have on this one? Next case is voices.ai. Pretty interesting case. Go ahead, David.
Testing.
She sounds
It works.
good.
Yeah, so I missed what Jeff was saying because I lost audio. I couldn't even hear what he was saying.
Oh, well, I just basically said that I agreed that there should not have been reverse domain name hijacking because, in essence, the complainant tried to withdraw the complaint once it saw the response, and we want to encourage more of that. And it was only continued to a decision because the respondent wanted it, and so I thought that that was the right outcome. That our DNH was denied.
Yeah, and in this case, there was no solicitation, no targeting, no evidence of targeting, and there was a follow-up communication from the complainant saying, well, we were just paranoid about somebody else getting this name, which really showed that they had no evidence that Booth targeted anybody.
They can be paranoid when they really find out who buys it from James. That's going to be the big deal. If that person is trying to cause the complainant problems, then that's a whole other case. Because, can be somebody who, knows of Sequent and, we'll see. Anyway, James is in the clear. He's a domain investor. Zach successfully defended him. This next case of ours is voices.ai. Okay, so we spoke earlier, John Berryhill represented the domain owner in the OLA case. He also represents this domain owner. And this domain owner, Igor Gabrielin, he's out of Ukraine. And I see him here on X a lot. Maybe Igor's in the room right now. Who knows? But I do see him here on X. But it was voices.com was the complainant in this case, and I'll let you guys tear this apart. But the interesting thing, you guys may remember when voice.com sold for 30 million. I remember looking at this site, voices.com, and it was always like, first it was like one, it was more than one guy, but one guy owned it, and Igor, it was no, Igor is the owner of voices.ai, but there was like a gentleman who does voiceovers and offered his services on voices.ai, and then of course he let other voiceover artists get involved, and then it's like, you're looking for a voiceover artist, go to voices.com, and he got a trademark, sort of a trademark, I guess. First, well, let's go back to you, David. Tell us some facts about this case and this complainant who had a trademark for voices.com as a service mark. Tell us how they got this and how strong it is.
So the trademark is actually the whole voices.com, not just the word voices, and that's a critical thing. And the other part is it's a 2F registration, which means that it was previously deemed to be merely descriptive. And then after a number of years and extensive usage, they were able to reapply and say, hey, we deserve a registration. Give us a 2F registration because, we say that we have distinctiveness. And so when they have a registration for a 2F registration, the registration is only good for the specific services offered in the registration and nothing more. And so even though on voices.com, they have AI services like text to speech, that's not good enough. You can still do all kinds of things with voices.ai, and voices.ai is distinctively different than voices.com. So there's difference in the minds of people. Igor is based out of the Ukraine, and he had no duty to look at the U.S. trademarks, and the U.S. trademark was very weak. And there's a whole bunch of U.S. trademarks for the word voice and voices. So they're not unique in the world of voices businesses, and those are the main things. But yeah, what do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. When we said earlier, the general rule is that the .com or the whatever TLD is ignored for purposes of UDRP decisions. The exception to the rule is that it is not ignored when it is part of the trademark itself, which is this case. And in fact, in the trademark registration itself, as David said, which is, it acquired distinctiveness. It acquired it, and it says in the registration itself, acquired distinctiveness claim as a or in whole, which or you could say as a whole, meaning that the trademark is not voices, it's voices.com. And you know, for purposes of the UDRP, in the respondents registration voices.ai, they do discount the AI. So it's for voices, and then they looked at a side-by-side comparison of the word voices, compared it to voices.com, and said, no, they're not really the same. And so it failed element one. And then, of course, it went on to talk about, even if for some reason you discounted the fact that the marks aren't the same, as David was saying, it's a descriptive, generic kind of word, and there's no targeting and all that other stuff. So they didn't technically even have to go past the first element. But the reason why people go describe, or panels go do the full elements, is that they don't want to give the impression that if for some reason this person filed again, if there was an ability to cure their problems, that they could file it again and succeed. So the panel here was like, no, and even if it was similar, um, you couldn't prevail on the other two elements. I'm trying to look. I don't think it was RDNH. I can't remember.
No, it was not. There was a three-member panel.
Right.
Alan Limberry was the chair, and this was one. David Miranda and our friend of the show, Steve Levy, was one of was the other wing. But yeah, so voices.ai was the domain name, just registered. It was basically acquired after a drop on a 3/31/23, so a little more than 2 years ago. But no, there was no RDNH, but they did go through, and the panel, said in this case, domain investing is legit, and the respondent in this case, he's the one that sold fin.ai for $1 million. So that's where I
Crazy.
knew Igor from. And
That is a crazy amount. Great for him.
yeah, and
But man, I just okay. I'm waiting to see how they use it.
yeah, he also owned voicechat.ai and voicetech.ai. So when you get a UDRP, if you do, it's always good if you are a domain investor and you have similar names. Domain investing is legitimate to most panelists, but it is nice to provide evidence of your domain investing, how long you've been doing it, similar names, and so on. I wanted to mention if you have any questions, come on up. We're about ready to shut down. The other thing we'll make a couple announcements and then we'll hear from Brad. If you have a question, raise your hand. I'll bring you up. Okay? So we talked. John Berryhill was the one that just represented the lawyer in that last case. He's going to be doing a session with me at NamesCon this year, and it's going to be basically how to protect yourself when you receive a UDRP, things to look for, and what to basically how to respond. And he's also going to be with Jeff and I, Karen Bernstein, Jason Schaefer. We're going to do a mock UDRP hearing. So if you get a chance, that's now just 3 months away. That's NamesCon, going to be in South Florida this year. There's such a big number of domain investors that live in South Florida, big presence of them down there, that I'm expecting because of that and because of the new location that it's going to be probably one of the biggest NamesCon events. And they're really loading up on the parties too. So I know on the 2 evenings, the 5th and the 6th, there's some parties that are going to be had. So check that out, namescon.com. Tonight, like I said, tomorrow night, and you can see on our dnlshow.com/outline, there's a D3 event. It's called a Doma Dev event in downtown Los Angeles tomorrow night. You can get details at the outline I just mentioned, dnlshow.com/outline. If you can make it, be there. It's got some food, and we're going to have a good time down at D3's office in downtown Los Angeles. And then Thursday, I'm doing, show with Josh. We're going to talk about domain investing for a couple hours. That's this Thursday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Might have a couple guests. I'm going to try to get Ryan, who's also over in the UK, Ryan Ewan. He should be able to show up at the same time. Josh is over there. Be the same time for both of them. But he's back on X. Sort of took a break for a little while, but he sold 30,000 names in the last year. Bought a lot, sold a lot. So it's a perfect space for us to talk about that domain investing, and we're going to do it for 2 hours. So I hope you can be with us on Thursday. That's going to be it for today. I'll go to Bradley. Hey, Brad, what comment, question did you have?
Thank you, Todd. And thank you, Jeff and David. And this whole show is awesome. That voices.ai, I just looked it up. It says it was registered 3/3/25. So, and then you said it was from a drop catch, and I was just, bringing up the fact that if that was, it was registered a few months ago, and it's an incredible name. So if that's the case, there's a whole open field about, you know, recharging your domain investing with the, AI takeover of the internet. It, how is it possible you got that great name just a few months ago?
Well, it was a
Well, the
drop.
previous owner was the complainant. Voices.com owned it, and they didn't renew it. That was a problem.
I didn't even know that. But Brad, where did you see it? I thought they had these .ai names on like ultra privacy where you can't even see when Identity Digital took over. Did they change that? I mean, so Brad, are you seeing a who is and it shows the registration date?
Yes, if you go to whois.vc, it's an excellent whois thing. And then you can actually push the registered name and it'll take you to the website.
Yeah. Anyway, whois.vc, and you see whois.com can't say no one else can have a whois service at whois. We're the first one. Yeah, you can. Anybody can, and whois.vc is doing it. It's perfect
Right.
for
And
it.
it says 3/3/25.
Yeah. So, like
So,
David said, it
David, are you
dropped, and
saying, when was it originally registered?
I don't know.
We don't know when it was originally
3/31/23 is the date
registered,
I
but
had, but that seems pretty late too. Meaning people were picking up names in, whatever 2017, but even before that, way back in the day, I don't know how this one would have slipped through and never been registered unless it has a big, it's a premium, and for some reason someone didn't. So I don't know how accurate the dates are. It may have dropped, a couple times since it was first registered. I don't have that handy, the very first registration. Um, all right, if anybody, what is today? Tuesday. Like I said, we got things going on. You're going to catch some pop-up spaces here. So I hope to see some people here on X in the meantime. Otherwise, see you Thursday morning here on X again with the DNX show. Everybody have a great rest of your day.